Picture this. You're Peter Mandelson. You've survived more political scandals than most people have had hot dinners. You've resigned from cabinet twice, clawed your way back each time, earned yourself a peerage, and just landed what should be the crowning glory of your career, ambassador to Washington, handpicked by the Prime Minister himself. You're on top of the world. And then, boom, a bunch of emails surface showing you were far cozier with Jeffrey Epstein than anyone realized. And suddenly you're not just losing your dream job. You're losing honors, facing calls to quit the Lords, and watching your entire legacy crumble like a digestive biscuit in hot tea. Welcome to the spectacular downfall of Peter Mandelson, a political car crash so dramatic it makes Game of Thrones look like a quiet Sunday afternoon. This is UK Secrets, and trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one. Let's set the scene because this story's got more twist than a pretzel factory. Peter Mandelson, a.k.a. Lord Mandelson, a.k.a. the Prince of Darkness, yes, that's actually what they call him, was appointed by Keir Starmer to be Britain's ambassador to the United States. Now, normally this job goes to a career diplomat, someone who spent decades mastering the art of saying absolutely nothing in the most diplomatic way possible. But Starmer decided to break with tradition and pick a political heavyweight instead. Bold move, risky move, as it turns out, spectacularly disastrous move. Here's where it gets juicy. Even before the appointment, there were eyebrows raised about Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. You know, Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted paedophile, the sex trafficker, the man whose name is synonymous with one of the most horrific abuse scandals in modern history. Yeah, that Jeffrey Epstein. Mandelson apparently knew him, socialized with him, stayed in contact with him even after Epstein's first conviction. But according to Starmer, the due diligence process happened. The propriety and ethics team gave it the once-over, and while they knew about the association, they thought it was manageable. Spoiler alert, it absolutely was not. Fast forward to last month, and suddenly emails start emerging. Not just any emails, Bloomberg emails that paint a very different picture of Mandelson's relationship with Epstein. We're not talking about occasional acquaintances bumping into each other at fancy parties. These emails reveal what officials described as a long-standing and close relationship that continued right up until Epstein's death in prison in 2019. But here's the kicker, and I mean the absolute bombshell that turned this from awkward to absolutely catastrophic. The emails show that Mandelson believed Epstein's conviction for child sexual abuse was wrongful and should be challenged in U.S. courts. Let that sink in for a moment. A man appointed to represent Britain on the world stage thought a convicted child sex offender had been wrongly convicted and should fight it in court. Now, you might be thinking, surely someone spotted this before appointing him? Well, apparently not. Or rather, the full extent of it wasn't known. Starmer himself admitted that had he known then what he knows now, he'd never have appointed Mandelson in the first place. Which raises the obvious question, how on earth did your due diligence process miss emails where your ambassador to be is essentially defending a paedophile? That's not a minor oversight. That's not a small detail slipping through the cracks. That's a Grand Canyon-sized gap in your vetting process. Starmer tried to explain it all, and to be fair to him, he didn't hold back. He laid out 3 specific reasons for sacking Mandelson. First, the nature and extent of the relationship was far different from what he'd understood when making the appointment. Translation: I thought they were vague acquaintances. Turns out they were proper mates. Second, the questioning and challenging of Epstein's conviction went completely against the government approach to violence against women and girls, a cornerstone of Labour's platform. You can't exactly champion women's safety while your top diplomat thinks a convicted sex offender got a raw deal. And third, when government officials asked Mandelson to explain himself, his responses were, in Starmer's words, not at all satisfying. That's political speak for his excuses were rubbish and we're not buying it. So Mandelson got brutally sacked. And I mean brutally. One minute you're preparing for Washington embassy garden parties and state dinners. The next you're persona non grata, watching your career implode in real time on national television. But here's where it gets even worse for Mandelson. Losing the ambassadorship was just the beginning of his problems. Enter Hartlepool. Hartlepool is the Teesside town where Mandelson served as MP for years. Back in 2010, they granted him the freedom of the borough, basically the highest civic honor the town can give. It's reserved for people who've rendered eminent services and whose conduct reflects the values and integrity of the borough. Mandelson thanked them for their unwavering loyalty that carried him through his tumultuous political career. Sweet moment, right? Well, not anymore. Last night, councillors in Hartlepool voted unanimously, and I mean every single one of them, to strip Mandelson of that honor. Unanimously. That's not just a rejection, that's a full-on public execution of your reputation. The motion they passed didn't pull any punches either. It explicitly stated that Mandelson's relationship with Epstein was fundamentally incompatible with the values and dignity of this honor. They pointed out that the freedom of the borough is granted only to individuals whose conduct reflects the values and integrity of the town, and that the recent disclosures about his relationship with a convicted paedophile that continued even after Epstein's conviction until his death simply didn't cut it. Hartlepool, the town that stood by Mandelson through 2 cabinet resignations and countless controversies, finally said enough is enough. That's got to sting more than any political defeat ever could. Thanks for watching UK Secrets. If this story shocked you as much as it shocked Westminster, smash that like button and subscribe for more political bombshells. What do you think? Should Mandelson resign from the Lords, or is losing everything else enough punishment? Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you next time.